Welcome, everyone. This is Mavericks Do It Different podcast, and I am Paul Finck, the Maverick Millionaire. And today I'm really excited to change your world by introducing to you some concepts and some belief systems and some information that'll have a real impact in your life. See, here at Mavericks Do It Different podcast, we do share information that helps us think different, be different, do different in our world, in our life, to create different results for ourselves, for our family, our society, our whole community, the whole world, one person at a time. Understanding that this is all about conflict. And oh boy, is conflict good or bad? Some people love conflict, and we know those types. They get right in there and they can't wait to rough it up a little. Other people avoid conflict like the plague. Well, the question is, what's right? What's effective? What really works? Is conflict something that we want to engage in, or something that we want to avoid, or maybe something in between? I want to get down into this conversation with you, and we're going to talk about this in regards to another layering of information, and that is on disc profiling assessments. And you may or may not have ever heard of this. It's fairly popular in the sales community and in the entrepreneurial or business communities. You hear about this, and it's one of the major assessment tests or personality assessments that are utilized throughout the world. It's called DISC, and it breaks everybody up into a minimum of four quadrants. One, and it's an acronym, DIS and C, for those four quadrants. One is D for dominance. Next one is I for influence, persuasion. The next one is S for socially conscious, caretakers of the world. And C is conscientiousness or detail-oriented components. And so with those four scenarios, those four quadrants, if you will, how do we effectively engage in conflict based on what our personality is? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So understanding conflict. Conflict is not inherently bad or inherently good. It's how we react to the world, or how we react to conflict, that makes the difference. And I'm going to talk primarily about whether there's healthy ways to engage in conflict based on what your tendency is, your go-to personality, and what is unhealthy aspects of approaching the challenge, approaching the conflict. So let's get down into it and figure out, well, maybe a little bit about who you are along the way. So let's talk about the D personality type. Now, a D personality type is your dominant personality type. It's the person who goes in for absolute results-oriented behavior and looks to create results. He's not concerned about people or about their feelings. He's concerned about how to get the best results for the most number of people. That's his usual focus. And so very much a take action type of guy, a risk taker, moves into the battlefield right away. And so when we think about that type of personality, and we think about some, let's say, world leaders, or even some people that are fictional characters, just to prove a point, Steve Jobs was a D. He went in there and got results done, a problem solver. However, he would do it in a way that was very healthy. He would do it in a solutions aspect, and usually respecting difference of opinion and having people come forward with their different thoughts before he would say, here's the game plan. Now, if we contrast that, and you may or may not agree with that analysis, but let's just assume that that's who Steve Jobs was. Contrast that with, if you know the movie Wall Street, and Gordon Gekko. Gordon Gekko was absolutely aggressive, prioritizing his own personal gains over everybody else's. And it was that collective, just massive success that he was looking for to prove power and authority. And that's an unhealthy component of D. So how would the two of them engage in conflict? Well, Steve Jobs, with conflict, he would approach it with collecting information and then making a definitive decision based on everybody's input. Gordon Gekko would approach conflict by dictating and telling people exactly how it's done, regardless of their thoughts or feelings, without ever really engaging in their input whatsoever. Let's look at an I, the influencer. The influencer is this fun-loving party. It just socially, like the life of the party, very much outgoing. That's what an I personality type is in DISC personality assessment. So an I personality, when we're engaged in conflict, well, like a Oprah Winfrey, Oprah would engage in conflict directly, pulling everybody in, ingratiating everybody with her presence, with her own charisma. Now you conflict that with the Gatsby. Gatsby was very much a outperson. The character, the fictional character Gatsby, was very much this showcaseman that would absolutely engage in just all personality was, all actions were about being liked. I want to be liked. I want more. I want more accolades in my life. And so all this was his approach. And so in that, he would engage in avoiding direct conflict, and all it was creating agreeability or likability. That's what an I unhealthy would be versus a healthy, which would persuade and influence through charisma. Again, talking unhealthy and healthy and some of the differences. We talked about an S personality. An S personality is someone who is steadfast, no change, doesn't really like conflict at all, is a pleaser for everybody. And versus the I is the pleaser for everybody in creating a party atmosphere or fun or outgoing. The S is a pleaser. No matter what the other person wants, they'll oblige, they'll create that scenario. So Mr. Rogers was a perfect example of an S personality. Just calm, perfect in every way, would just ingratiate everyone and be the caretaker for the world. And that was Mr. Rogers as far as a personality was concerned. And his approach to conflict was calm and collectiveness, was giving everyone a shoulder to lean into and to see how we could all work together, creating a win-win-win-win-win scenario at all times. An unhealthy approach to conflict would be, let's say, Neville from Harry Potter. So Neville from Harry Potter would avoid conflict at all costs. He would make up stories or create a go-around to avoid the conflicts that were showing up in his world. And with that, cause more challenges every conflict he avoided. Sound familiar with anybody that we know? We see these personalities all around us. Start placing it. So avoidance of conflict for an S is really common, and that is an unhealthy way of handling and managing conflict. A healthy way is to get everyone together to talk, to figure out a win-win-win scenario. Again, healthy and unhealthy conflicts and where they're showing up. C personality. A C personality is your analytic, the engineer of sorts, the computer programmers, the person who goes step by step, logical patterns of behavior. They also hate conflict. They avoid it. And so a typical avoidance conflict in a C personality will create this wave of challenge. And what they also may do is, with avoiding the conflict, they may get into it and be a little bit derogatory to the other person, or almost looking their nose down on the person and creating this air about them because they're smarter than everyone else in the room, almost like a Sherlock Holmes would approach it and snub his nose at all the people around him. That would be the way that a C might, a unhealthy approach from an analytical point of view, might approach conflict, is just to snub conflicting points of view and to make them feel bad. What would be a healthy C point of view? An analytical approach to conflict would be to be the data collector, almost like I talked about Steve Jobs and getting really directive. Well, a C personality like Elon Musk, where he collects a ton of information and just comes at any conflict with a very much matter-of-fact approach that, well, here's the step-by-step. You may agree or disagree. Here's where the logical pattern of behavior leads us. And he'll approach it in that way. All conflict and conversation, he'll approach in that same aspect. Again, the healthy and unhealthy approach. Understanding all these components, understanding how conflict shows up in our life and how we approach it has everything to do with whether it's good or bad. Because it's not good or bad, it's more whether our approach is effective or ineffective. Whether we manage the conflict effectively or head on, creating a understanding with the conflict on how to overcome it, or whether we're simply like some of the personality components might do, avoid conflict at all costs. The way you approach conflict, the way you manage it, the way you engage with it will make the difference in your life. So I'm here to say, man, understand conflict is a way of life. Conflict will happen in your life every single day, no matter what happens. Now it's a matter of how do you approach it to be effective? How do you approach it so that you are facing it to create the best outcome for you, the best outcome for your future, for your life? What would you do? Would you move towards it or away from it? Are you going to be the caretaker and figure out a win-win-win? Or are you going to be the one that avoids? Are you going to be the one that comes in and collects the data and goes through a logical pattern of step-by-step process with everybody in the room to engage with them to see where we all end up as a team? Or are you going to look your nose down and tell everyone that they're stupid and just ignore them all? What's your approach to conflict? How is it working for you? These are the questions for you to be asking. I want you to engage in this thought process as you go through the day. Look for the conflict and figure out, how are you approaching the conflicts in your life, and what would be a more effective approach? Be thinking these questions as you go through your day. Watch what happens in your life. This is Paul Finck. This is Mavericks Do It Different podcast. Continue to share, like, follow, and engage with us every single week, because we are here to engage with you and to help change this world one person at a time. Look forward to seeing you all, talking to you all. Till next time, everyone. Take care now.
Thanks for being here today. As our gift to you, be sure to go to themaverickuniverse.com, where you can download your free copy of the Maverick Manifesto. Until next time, dare to be different. Dare to be a Maverick.